everyone, welcome to Serving Up Plumbing with me, David Butler. Today we're going old school again. I keep having plumbers and friends and everyone talk about they would love to know how to do lead and oakum. Well, when I first started plumbing in the late 70s, early 80s, we were still doing some lead and oakum on big school that I was doing. So I did get to learn to do it, but we shortly thereafter quit. I still do know how to do lead and oakum though, and today we're going to do a lead and oakum caulk joint on some 3-inch cast iron. Before we do that, please hit that subscribe button. Please give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you'd like to see in the future and what you think of this video. And let's go old school, back in time to lead and oakum. We're here in the shop now, and we're going to talk about old school plumbing. Well, it doesn't get much more old school than lead and oakum caulk joints for doing hub and spigot cast iron. This is a newer hub. I've kind of got it cut off and set up and fixed into the pipe vise so we can get a good look at it as we do it. I haven't done a lead and oakum joint probably in 35 years, maybe a little longer. But you never forget how to do certain things in plumbing. I did a lot of them when I first started. The late 70s, it was just starting to come to an end. We were still doing a lot of it in commercial work, but it was intertwining with tie seal gaskets, and then no hub bands were starting to come in about this time and put it in place. I worked for an old school plumber, and he was a great mentor, and he had done lead and oakum all his life. We have a lot of lead and oakum joints still out there in houses that were built. Of course, anything built back in the early 19th century had lead and oakum joints. They were still using lead and oakum right up into the 50s and 60s. We were still using it commercially, as I said, in the 70s and early 80s. Then we started getting away from it. But all my plumbers have said they wanted to see this, so let's do one today just for old time's sake. We've got oakum. This is called brown jute oakum. This is the older style oakum that they have. They also make a white powdered oakum, but we're going to be using this today. Actually, this is some extremely old oakum that we got from a garage of a customer. The husband had been an old plumber. He had passed away, and he had an old box that had several different types of old plumbing tools in it, and a plumbing lead pot and things of that nature. And this oakum bag was still in there that had this handful of oakum. It's still not dried out. It's still in pretty good shape. We've also got lead. I have some that I've already melted here, a little ingot. You could actually used to buy lead in square 4 and 5 pound ingots. You would melt those down. We also used a lot of things like this. This is an old lead bin that we cut out of a house. I'm using this to melt down because there's no point in going and buying it when you've got some old lead around, because it's all the same. What does the lead do? What does the oakum do? Well, the brown jute oakum, this is the critical part of a lead and oakum joint. This is what makes it watertight. This is what seals it up. The lead just goes in to hold the oakum in place, keep it tight, and make the pipes good and sturdy. The oakum goes in, we pack it in around the pipe, we tighten it down by packing it in really tight, and then the water gets into this, soaks into it, it swells, and it seals off the joint. Incredible, huh? That's what they used to do to all the old cast iron joints. So the first thing we need to do is let's get some oakum in this joint. Now, how do we do that, and what kind of things do we use to do it? Well, on a previous short, we talked about irons, caulking irons. These two right here are actually my old caulking irons. I've had these about 40 plus years, probably 45 years. I did purchase some newer ones. They are still available on Amazon. The one thing I could not buy, and I don't have anymore, is a yarning iron. Now, with these, we have an inside iron and an outside iron. That's for packing the lead, these smaller ones like this. This wide one like this is for packing the oakum. And then the yarning iron was made a lot like this, but it was about that long. And what it was for was to yarn the oakum into the joint. Well, as I said, I could not find one of those. I couldn't find my old one. I actually believe I bought these at a pawn shop back when I was doing plumbing instead of buying them new. And I got them for little or nothing back then because lead and oakum was going out. People were selling them. Most of the pawn shops thought these were chisels. We knew better. They were a very valuable tool if you were doing lead and oakum. So we're going to use one of these caulking irons to put the oakum in place. Once you've got the oakum in and everything, and it's packed and ready to go, that's when you pour the lead in. Now, with the oakum, we're going to put about 1/3, 2/3. So the oakum's going to be about 2/3 filled up here, and on a 3-inch joint, this is about 2 3/4 inches to 3 inches. So we're going to put about 2 inches of oakum and about 3/4 of an inch to an inch of lead in here. That's generally 1/3 to 2/3 is what you want in the mix. Some guys got more, some guys got less, but you need that much lead to support the pipe. You need that much oakum in there to make sure it seals off tight. In fact, even on some old lead joints, if you ran across one that was dripping, oftentimes you could take in and caulk that lead joint, tighten up that oakum, and make it not leak anymore. So the lead, when we're going to pour the lead in, you're going to need to melt this lead. Now, one thing about the lead is you need to make sure that you're safe when you're heating it. Lead gives off fumes when it's being heated. Those fumes are toxic. They can give you lead poisoning. Now, we're not going to be doing a lot. Make sure and do this in a well-ventilated area. We're in a well-ventilated shop here. We're only going to be doing a small amount. But if you were ever doing a great amount, and we didn't used to do this when we were plumbers in the older times. Back in the late 70s, my guys didn't teach me to use a respirator. We did make sure and control the temperature of the lead, because if you get the lead too hot, it gives off more dangerous fumes. So we stayed further away. We made sure we weren't staying around the lead pot. We kept it away from where we were working. We only went over there in times to dip a ladle of lead out. But in our case, we're going to heat this with a torch. So we're going to melt this lead down with a torch. It is going to give off fumes. If you were going to do very much of this, you definitely want to be wearing a respirator. One of the respirators like this. This filters out lead, it filters out toxin, it filters out asbestos. The pinkish purplish filters filter out just about everything that could hurt you. So in that case, you'd want to be doing this. I'll have this on when I'm heating it up. I won't be talking. You can be watching it heat. We'll pull it back off so I can talk afterwards. The oakum. Let's add the oakum. Well, as I mentioned, I don't have a yarning iron, so we're going to wrap the oakum around it just lightly. And now we need to tuck the oakum down into where it goes. So we kind of drop the rope in there, tuck it all the way down to the bottom, go all the way around, continue to come around here, poke it all the way down to the bottom of the hub. Make sure this pipe stays down in there, and we're going to keep going around with the oakum. We've got our first piece in. Now that we got it, we want to pack it down. You go all the way around. Pack it down. We'll see how much it goes down. We've still got a depth there of about to here, so let's try another piece, right? We'll use a little thin piece. The 3-inch is a little bit smaller pipe, and we'll start just like we did before. We'll start tucking it in. Work it all the way around. You can see now you're slowly starting to see some oakum towards the top. It's getting a little bit higher. You can see the oakum's almost at the top now. So now we need to take our packing iron and pack it down again. Now you don't over tighten this to start with. You work your way around. You want to make sure you get all the threads in there, because if not, that thread could be a leak. All right, we've packed the oakum all the way around. You can set this in there now, and kind of as a depth gauge, you can see I'm about 3/4 of an inch to an inch of lead. That's perfect. This is good and tight. This is pretty sturdy already. You can see I kind of shake the whole thing when I grab this and move it. It's good and solid in there. But we're about to pour lead in there and make it much more solid. So we're done with the packing iron. We're done with yarning iron. We're done with our oakum. One more thing you want to make sure of: if you were doing a pipe like this, you would put a torpedo level on this and make sure this is good and level. All right, now let's melt some lead. One thing you want to make sure is put your respirator on right now so that we're going to be melting it. Don't put your head directly over this. As you melt it, stay back. We're going to melt this ladle full of lead. We may add a little bit more to it. Then we're going to pour this joint right here flush up to the cast iron. So let's watch that. It's because we've got our oakum in, we've got it packed, it's ready to go, it just needs the lead. This needs to cool just a little bit, not a whole lot, but we want to let it cool just a little bit, and then we're going to do the caulking of the lead. As we mentioned earlier, we've got two different irons here. We have an inside iron, which the bevel goes inside to be right against the lead, and it will hammer the lead down on a wedge this direction. The outside iron is beveled the opposite way. You can kind of see these. This one you're going to put on the outside of the lead, right against the outside of the hub, and you're going to tap that down and hammer it in. So you're going to go all the way around, tapping down the inside iron, and then all the way down tapping in the outside iron. All right, now we're going to caulk the lead. We've caulked and put in the oakum. Now we're going to caulk the lead. Inside iron first. We tap it down. We just go along and all the way around. You don't want to overhit it. We're just tightening it up. Every single inch you overlap. Go all the way around. If you did it right and you packed your oakum down good, this is not going to sink very far. Then we come back with our outside iron right against the outside hub of the cast iron, and we tap it again all the way around. That is as solid as a rock now. That cast iron joint is so solid. And that's how you lead and oakum a cast iron joint. That is solid as a rock, just like that. I mean, that pipe won't move whatsoever. It is one solid joint right there. That's how you caulk a lead and oakum joint. Now, one last thing. This is a nice vertical pipe, isn't it? So that's great. But what about those joints that you had to do that we call a running joint or a horizontal joint? How do we do that? Well, there's this device right here. It's called a running rope. This one's pretty old. This was mine a long time ago. This is a running rope. This one's kind of dried out. We used to soak them in oil, even cutting oil. Sometimes get some dirt on them, some other things, just so the lead won't stick to them. You can't have it to where it's got stringy edges sticking out like this one. This one's dried out pretty bad. What are you going to do? So let's take this out and turn it horizontal. So I said we were going to use a running rope, and that's what you use to pour horizontal joints. Horizontal joints aren't quite as neat and clean as vertical joints, but this rope is really dried out, as I mentioned, Needs some oil soaked in it, maybe a little dirt on it, because that won't hurt getting in the top of the lead. That has nothing to do with anything. But what we're going to do, we're going to take this, wrap it around it like this, bring these up to the top here, about even them out. This clip comes behind it back here, sticking up from the pipe, and it clips around both sides just like that. And we pull it back, we take our hammer, we tap this down good and tight all the way around. And if you'll notice, right up here we've got a little gap. Right there in that gap is where you take your lead ladle and you're going to pour it in right there. And you fill that lead up until you see it fill in the entire joint. After you do, you let it cool, you pull your rope off. There's usually a little chunk of lead right here. You just take that and cut it off with one of your inside chisels, and then you caulk it just like you do when it's on a vertical joint. Inside lead, outside lead. And that's how you do a horizontal joint. You use a running rope just like that. Pour the lead in. Man, running ropes, caulking irons, Oakum, packing irons. You saw how long it took me to do it. Nowadays, we put a no-hub band together. We're done in 1 to 2 minutes. That was a lot of work back then, wouldn't it? Great respect for the old school plumbers, man. They did an incredible job putting plumbing together. And I guarantee you, this lead and Oakum piping, when you do that stuff, you can climb on it like a jungle gym. Outstanding plumbing, but man, aren't we glad we've progressed to where we can do things much, much quicker. Just think how much labor it would take on a job that we do in PVC nowadays, glue and primer, to do every single joint lead and Oakum like that. Aren't you glad for new technology? Aren't you glad that you didn't live in the times that we had to use lead and Oakum? Can you imagine how long it took to do a house like that or a commercial building? Well, thank goodness we don't do that anymore, right? We've got so many fast ways to do it nowadays. I hope you liked this video. Please make sure and give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Let me know what you'd like to see in the future. If there's something old school that you'd like to see that I know how to do, we'll try that too. Thanks for watching. Remember to tell your friends, the Butler did it.